And we're going to bring Nick in to talk conversion rate optimization, which is kind of playing right off of this as a conversion rate optimization component to a business and of course, post-purchase optimization. So perfect. And thank you both so much.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, Nick, you're being promoted now. Adam, I'll bump you down to attendee. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine. Can you see me all right?
I can see you. I see the giant printer. Everything is good.
The giant printer is really like the seal of authenticity that you've gotten on a phone call with me. Like, where would everyone be if it went away? It's like infamous at this point.
I'm just worried about the contracts you're printing out with this thing.
Worry about the design comps I'm printing out with that thing. I print everything.
Nice. I like it. Paper is something that I still value. Actually, I take notes on pieces of paper and stuff. And I have the whiteboard as well, and a cork board. It's you need some physical visuals. I use Asana for like managing all my like pipelines and team coordination stuff. But like still for my to-do list today, I have it written down on the side. Like I have to have it written down here, otherwise I'll forget.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Anyways, what's the printer's name, Stephanie asks?
I don't know if the printer has a name. It should have a name on the network, but it's probably like Xerox Phaser and then a really long number numeric string, which is a very disappointing name. I'm terrible.
All right,
sorry.
So we have to poll the audience and everyone has to submit a name. And then maybe by the end of your session today, we'll have a new name for the printer. Everybody, what should Nick's printer's name be? And now we're completely off topic, which I think is fun.
Here it is. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much. You can see I'm sharing my slides. Okay. Is that right?
It looks good. We're good to go.
I'm Nick Disabato. My mom calls me Nick D. I'm a designer and writer from the city of Chicago. Thank you so much to Derek and eCommerce Tech for having me, to you for coming. Per expectation, we are going to, whoa, goodness. We're going to flub the keyboard and talk about optimization today. You probably think of optimization as running A/B tests, but that's not really the whole story. And even within A/B testing, there's a lot more that goes into just running an A/B test and running Google Optimize. For me, I kind of view optimization about creating a reliably profitable process for de-risking new design decisions, right? And design decisions have a really high risk over Black Friday. They do. When you make a mistake, that mistake gets compounded during larger sales periods. The goal, as within any part of your business, if you're thinking about doing optimization right now, try to make more money off of optimization than you put into it. Sounds easy, is not all that easy, right? But when that happens, your maturity around optimization increases and it kind of becomes a virtuous cycle. You gain more ideas about optimization, you become better at optimization. It incentivizes you to do optimization, right? And so in this talk, I'm going to be talking about two things. One of them is how to kind of create a holistic process for optimizing your store such that you get a consistently high ROI out of it. And then I'm going to go into kind of timelines around optimizations, because I think that everybody becomes consciously aware of optimization around now, right? They're like, oh my God, I need to do all the things and fix all the things before Black Friday. For me, we actually don't really hire right now for clients. We're planning out for April. and we do that because it takes a longer period of time to run A/B tests than most people tend to think, and to get dialed in on that process. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means for you right now and what you can do to kind of, grease the wheels as much as possible. I'm not going to teach you really about how to run an A/B test either, because I kind of think that's the easy part. You could go to Google Optimize, move stuff around, change copy, do whatever you need, right? And it really doesn't matter. What matters is what you test and why. It's not enough to just run all the tests. You need to be able to create a process that comes up with test ideas that reliably win. And for me, I come from a UX background, and my process is through research, which is the most unsexy, eat your vegetables thing, but you have to bear with me for the next 10 or 15 minutes. I think no store owner really knows their customers until they start consciously observing and asking them, right? Research is how you come up with test ideas that work. And you can hire a place like Draft to do that. You can hire other consultants, or you can do it yourself. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but what matters is that you're getting out of your head and thinking about what makes your customers tick, what makes them buy, and try and come up with design decisions that are more reliably able to win and generate revenue for you. Research comes in two forms. There's quantitative and qualitative. Qualitative is basically what customers say. It's all the feelings, stories, try to empathize more with their context. It's more free-form text than data, right? Quantitative research is more what they're doing, right? It involves measuring something. That can be analytics, heat and scroll maps, figuring out traffic sources, tracking events, even quantitative surveys, right? And it's really, really important to have a 50-50 blend of both quantitative and qualitative research in any optimization program. Like, it's not enough to just sit in GA and Hotjar and think that you're done with it. You need to actually go out and talk to people. Oh, I think I talked to people in customer support. That is a form of research, but it's not really asking, like, where did you find us? What were you thinking as you showed up on our store? What was showing up for you? Did you have any objections as you were buying from us? Did you look at any other competitors? That's what qualitative research really is. And you need to blend it with this in order to really do well. That being said, there's a lot of stuff you can get started with right away. If you have a website, you should run heat and scroll maps on it. These show you where people are clicking and how far that they're scrolling down a page. Hotjar is the one that I recommend, as mentioned, and it's super, super cheap. These are great for figuring out how people work with a given page, whether they get confused with an element, nope off of it, how quickly they skim, whether they're actively reading versus passively skimming. Analytics teaches you more about the effect of different traffic sources, advertising demographics. It gives you a sense of how poorly your mobile store is converting, which it probably is converting very poorly. And if you don't really know a whole lot about analytics, or you're not much of a data person, there's a lot of stuff that you can do to get your analytics up to speed quickly and easily. And Conversion XL's blog has a couple really good resources for this. Take a look at their 2 resources on Google Analytics. Make sure you're keeping your house in order. And yes, you're going to get the talk as a PDF after this, so you don't have to frantically write those down or anything like that. But, you know, between heat and scroll maps and analytics, like, there's a lot of other quantitative methods of research you can be doing. But if you're new to this and you've never done anything else, this is the easiest point of leverage that you have to start generating reliably revenue-creating design decisions. Now, talking about qualitative forms of research, you have to get people on the phone. I'm a millennial and I am required to hate the phone, and I still get people on the phone all the dang time because it's my job to do so. And I recognize it's not an optional part of the process. Interviews involve recruitment. You need to make sure that your participants are qualified, like they've bought from you or they haven't bought for you. You need to know what that is. And then you interview them about how they worked with your store, compensate them for their time. There's so many amazing resources about conducting interviews. I've done 3-hour workshops on conducting interviews. Instead, I'm going to direct your attention to these 2 books that are written by people who are way smarter than me. Steve Portigal's Interviewing Users and Nate Bolt and Tony Tulatimute's Remote Research are brilliant. Interviewing Users costs $22 and does more to teach you about interviewing in 2 hours than pretty much anything else out there. And if you think you're nervous about this, everyone is nervous about this. If you think you're going to have disastrous interviews, I still have disastrous interviews. I've been doing this for 16 years. It's okay. Dust yourself off. It'll be chill. The amount of information you get back from interviews will probably make back the amount of time and cost that it took to put in for this within a week or so. You get some real truth out of it. Next up is usability tests. So if you go to trymyui.com or conversioncrimes.com, you can buy 5 tests, and you just basically ask people, browse around, vocalize their internal monologue as to what they're seeing on the store, what's showing up for them, and then try and purchase a product with a fake credit card, maybe fake information. And you try and have them do this on a variety of browsers and devices. Third-party usability testing is probably the best thing you can do to surface conversion-killing usability issues. 5 videos on Try My UI go for $350. The issues that surfaces will make that back in under a day once they're fixed. Usability tests are better for bugs. And interviews are better for like pitch, like what kind of copy are you writing? What kind of objections are you busting? What really matters to people? And how can you write towards that? There's also in qualitative side of things, post-purchase surveys. You might be familiar with these. They're super useful for surfacing ongoing issues with your store. So on your order status and your thank you pages, on the confirmation there, you add a form that just asks for the customer's email if they want to be contacted, and the question, how did you feel about your purchasing experience today? And then if you have any support inquiries, you send them to customer service. You mine the rest for conversion opportunities. You get their email address. You could potentially put them on the phone for an interview. It works really well. This is good for just kind of on the fly getting interesting insights. And a lot of people just write, great, or I had a wonderful time, or where's my thing? Well, okay, filter those out. Some people just rant into that text box. And sometimes I've taken it and just copied out a sentence and made it the H1 of the homepage, and it like conversion rate will go up by like 20%. They're great. Post-purchase surveys are great. Once you have all of these things together, you need to make sense of these design decisions. So I'm going to whip through this. Normally, I would talk a little bit more about how you actually look at what the problems are and dive into that, which is a process called synthesis. But because we're pressed for time and I'm going to be talking a lot about Black Friday in a minute, I want to talk instead about prioritization, because I trust people, generally speaking, to take a look at heat maps and be like, yeah, no one is paying attention to this, 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 and this. Or to look at analytics and be like, our mobile conversion rate is 1/3 that on desktop. You can come up with ideas, right? Let's say you have a lot of ideas for coming up with A/B tests. I don't think you have any shortage of ideas for improving your store between now and Black Friday either. How do you prioritize them? We need to figure out what to test first, because you can't do everything at once. And there's kind of a 3-step process for me. The first is weigh how feasible it is to roll out. Am I going to be totally retheming? That's not great. Am I going to be changing a line of copy on the homepage? Super feasible. I can do that in 10 minutes. Next is impact. Is it happening above the fold for a lot of customers? Okay, well, that could be potentially higher impact. Is it being viewed a lot or interacted with a lot on heat and scroll maps? That definitely matters. It's usually an area with a lot of guesswork. I have a huge checklist that I go through that I talk about in the prioritization post on Draft's blog, which is super worth taking a look at. If you go to draft.nu/blog, there's a link called prioritization in there. And in it, I have the whole questionnaire that I ask when you try to determine the impact of a feature. And then finally, there's strategic alignment. So how much does this align with your business's goals? And this is not how much somebody in sales wants the test to happen. It's not how passionately the CEO cares. Strategy, we believe, is a long-term play. Even when Black Friday is happening and the world is on fire, strategy is still a long-term play. I have shifted Draft's business strategy precisely once in my 9-year history. So you probably know, relatively speaking, what products you're going to be launching, how you're reacting to the market. You know that already. And each of these things gets scored much like a Zagat rating from 1 to 10. This would be, 10 would be if it's super, super easy. 1 would be if it's super, super hard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You go through, you have scores from 3 to 30, and then you prioritize them in descending order and you test the things that score the highest. Basically, when every experiment ends, we measure its impact against our primary metric, try to assess any knock-on effects that it might have for other metrics or behaviors, and then we try to make a recommendation as to whether or not you roll the change out to everybody, a specific segment of customers, or nobody at all. I find it easier to, when it comes to prioritization, just throwing away anything that scores under like a 10, 15. And if you're listening to this right now at the end of September, realistically, you're only going to get 1 or 2 rounds of testing in between now and Black Friday anyway. So the big home run things that are the least risky and highest reward, run a test on it. Sometimes we work with in-house development teams to put everything in practice. Most often, I just kind of code and deploy everything myself because I know exactly enough to be super dangerous. Once you've actually got your tests together and it's running, you try and make sense of the results. Testing is fundamentally rooted in science and statistics, which I love as a math major, and I find that everyone else tends to cringe about it. So you're kind of dealing with the scientific method and the application of the scientific method to design decision-making on your store. You're dealing with raw numbers, too. The number of people visiting your store, the number of people completing a certain funnel, the number of people converting, right? And you're dealing with a hunch, which is effectively the design decision you're testing as your experiment's variant, and you're trying to prove its success. So with that in mind, I try to make this as painless as humanly possible for people. Basically, the way that you calculate statistical significance and whether or not a variant one is through a, again, wildly unsexy thing called a chi-squared test. So this is the calculator that I use on Evan Miller's blog. He's a statistician. The whole thing is set in Times New Roman, so that's how you can take it seriously. And you basically you have in these boxes up here, there's sample 1, sample 2, if you see in the background there. Sample 1 is your control, sample 2 is your variant. Number of successes, the number of people who bought stuff. Trials is the number of people who viewed your store. That's it. Plug those numbers in. And if you have something that created a significant difference, over 95% confidence, you have what's called a winner. Congratulations, that went great. And you keep what works, throw away what doesn't, rinse and repeat. I am sure you have questions around all of this. I want to move into Black Friday stuff and get through the meat of the talk, and then I'll answer Q&A after. So talking about Black Friday, when I work with my clients year round, right? And in fact, if they hire me anytime after August, I make them sign a contract that says that they're not just hiring me for Black Friday. Optimization is a long-term play for us. Our average engagement is 1.5 years. So that will overlap Black Friday, right? So how do we help them prepare for their most important sale of the year? The entire time, you should be running heat and scroll maps and checking GA. Heat and scroll maps should be checked not only as their own end, but analyzed over time to determine how things change as you keep improving your store. One thing that's really cool with Hotjar now is they have a way of sort of slapdash integrating with Google Optimize so that when you have a variant, you can see the heat map only for customers who went to that variant. So you can see over time how things change from an interactional standpoint from the control to the variant. Super, super, super useful. In around April, you should start testing your home collections and product detail pages. I usually work on top of funnel early because, and this is going to sound way counterintuitive, but it's usually the places where you can get the highest impact because newcomers are coming in. They don't know about your brand. They don't know about your store, and you have a chance to make a really good first impression. And because copy is one of the highest leverage points that you have in optimization, testing your homepage and testing your masthead. Also, most mastheads are busted. It's a place to basically get a lot of really quick wins and seem like a wizard. Also, for us, our busy season is around March or April as far as hiring people. And at this point, we're booked up until March, I think, something like that. March or April. So, you know, that gives you enough time to run a lot of rounds of testing on home collections and product detail pages. Home and product are the two places you're going to have the highest leverage. Most collection pages are, I would reasonably say, good enough unless you have enormous product databases, in which case your collections need to be focused on better subcategories, better filtering and sorting mechanisms, which Shopify just does not do terribly well right out of the gate. So if that sounds like you and your store, you should be incorporating collection page testing into your strategy, probably wildcarding it. That way you can run tests on all of your collection pages at once so you get more traffic in and you get more statistically significant results. Starting out, if you haven't done this yet, you should run what's called a heuristic evaluation on your store and determine if there's any low-hanging fruit to be picking on it. So we have our own lists of heuristics that we put together in Draft's blog and in our book, Value-Based Design. You can download similar lists on Conversion XL and e-commerce consultancy called Baymard Institute. And I think those are super, super useful for just going through checklists and figuring out what works, what doesn't, what you should be developing, right? It's a good way to get a decent development queue in early. When you get closer to Black Friday weekend, you should start testing your upsells, your cart, your checkout, and go a little bit further down the funnel. Both in their placement, if you have upsells, product page, cart page, sidebar cart, checkout, post-purchase, I don't know. I find them working in different places for different clients depending on different circumstances and depends on what you're selling. And also in their contents, like what product are you upselling? Are you upselling a quantity or are you cross-selling? Are you upselling a subscription? Does that make sense for you to be doing? Around this point, you should also be testing risk reduction. So this is something I love doing on product detail pages, curating social proof, designing it fancy, and putting it above the fold nearby the buy box. That's something that is a really easy, quick win that you can be doing on product detail pages. Because if you look at your scroll maps, you'll see that very frequently, most product detail pages, you don't even get a whole lot of scroll activity down by your reviews section, which means people aren't reading your reviews, which means they don't know if you're trusted. You need to hammer it home that you're trusted, right? Trying that on your product page, trying a more generic social proof on your cart or checkout pages, adding trust seals, especially on product or cart, but try and design them yourself and don't really try and overdo it because that can be really weird. And it's a great time to return to your quantitative research and your funnel research when you're doing this, right? You should be testing based on your upsell take rate, if you're testing upsells, conversion rate at every step of the funnel, because you want to increase add to cart rate, but hopefully that will also increase conversion rate. Average order value, average revenue per user, all those things are super, super useful. And then when you get to November, you should basically just be fixing bugs and usability errors in your cart and your checkout, anywhere else. Baymard Institute is probably your best resource here, although if you run a Shopify store, you might find your checkout page itself pretty hard to optimize. You might also want to run a round or two of usability tests on your cart and checkout around this time. So you want to make sure that people are able to check out across platform, across device, because all of a sudden platforms like Firefox that you thought never mattered suddenly do. And if their conversion rate is broadly lower than your store average, which you can find out in analytics, then you might have some bugs to be fixing or some page weight issues to be fixing or JavaScript rendering flubs, stuff like that, right? And then on Black Friday weekend, I mean, the world's tiniest bug fixes. Like, your store really should be locked by here. I know the reality of the fact is you're going to be doing stuff over Black Friday weekend. Draft closes for the entire second half of November, but over Black Friday weekend, we basically just give people a guide about what to be fixing, where, why, what not to be fixing, because it might affect other things. And we build that bespoke for each store, right? And you should really only be fixing things that unambiguously improve sales. You don't get enough, it's not a long enough time duration to be running tests. So if you are running a Black Friday sale, say from Tuesday until Monday, that's only 1 week, right? And then what are the insights that you get from it? Because the traffic is totally different. People are looking for a deal. They know it's Black Friday. No one is stupid. And you're only running it for long enough to maybe help you for next Black Friday. But then you're going to be doing different stuff for next year's Black Friday anyway, right? So why would you be running A/B tests? And those can break too. Do you really want another point of failure on your checkout funnel or your marketing funnel over Black Friday weekend? I don't think that, it makes sense. So we recommend that you just focus on tiny bug fixes and then do maybe one round of holiday testing in the middle of December, which hopefully you can try and repurpose for future years. One, ideally, maximum two, if you get a ton of traffic and you have a lot of time to prepare. We put together a full guide to holiday testing in Revise Weekly this year, and that's linked right there. And so then we close for Christmas, and then we come back and do a New Year's postmortem. So we figure out what worked, what didn't, what were the overall numbers, how did it work relative year over year. Especially this year, I feel like comparing any financial figures is a little bit dangerous just because this is such an unusual Black Friday. I know everybody's like, it's going to be crazy. I just think it's not going to be normal. And if you know that going in, it sort of allows you to just be very serene about whatever data you happen to get in. It's just like, oh, this happened. Okay, cool. What do we do with it? Did any products perform better or worse? What do we want to change? How did we identify what worked and what didn't, And then I want to close by talking about a few things that everybody seems to screw up over Black Friday and really any sale period, because you're running sales the rest of the year. It's not like Black Friday is the only time your stuff costs less, unless it is, but that's not common, right? First thing, just mentioned, experimenting on Black Friday weekend. Don't do it. Sale traffic is unrepresentative of your normal traffic. You really don't know what you're doing. And every single Black Friday is different. I don't know if I've ever really taken insights from a Black Friday weekend and been like, yeah, that's evergreen. Nothing is evergreen on Black Friday different. The whole sale is different. It doesn't make any sense. The next one is really big and it sounds pernicious, and some of you are going to draw in breath and be sad. People think that copy tests are too hard. They love changing their call to action buttons to red instead of green instead. The critique process is complicated. You don't really know what you stand for. The research process is nebulous. It creates foggy goals. But I'm here to tell you that copy matters more than anything, and you need to soldier through. And it especially matters more than anything when you're dealing with a potential recession, right? It reduces risk for the customers. It promotes your brand values. It speaks to what their needs are. And doing it right is a tremendous competitive advantage. I think it's huge. I think that almost all of the biggest winning tests that I've had in my career, and our win rate is over 50% at this point, I think they've all been on copy. If you don't know how to do good conversion-focused copy well, my favorite resource for it is Joanna Wiebe at copyhackers.com. Super, super useful. She writes many books, many resources, many courses about how to test copy, right? And this goes back to qualitative research too, right? If you don't understand what the customer values, how can you write to their needs? How are you writing to their needs? It doesn't make any sense. Next is something that e-commerce people love to do, and I'm telling you, you really shouldn't be doing over Black Friday, which is following like big players, Amazon, even famous people in e-commerce who look relatable, right? They have different stores. Everybody has a bespoke need. Your store has a bespoke need. You don't need to imitate leaders unless you have a very clear and evidence-based reason for doing so. And if you really want to imitate a leader, run their design decisions through your research process first so you can confirm that the things they're talking about are something you should actually be doing for your store. Because otherwise you're going to be wasting testing time. And if you're listening to this at the end of September, you don't have testing time to waste. And then finally, everyone's perennial favorite for the Shopify people in the house, too many apps. It increases clutter, it reduces performance. It's a super fast win for conversion rate optimization. When people hire me, one of the first things I do is recommend that they uninstall half of them. But I usually tell you which half. Often you end up with situations where you install an app and it claims to provide a conversion improvement, but it also sideloads 1 megabyte of JavaScript. And when that happens, the reduction in page performance erases the benefits that these apps purport to give. You really only want to install apps that clearly move the needle without any trade-offs. So that's a very brief summary of A/B tests. Now, you can look at this talk and cut out a third of it and be like, oh yeah, I don't need to research. I can just run the test like Nick D says and do everything that Nick D says about, the past, the last 2 months of the year. And you could. However, I find that research tests tend to win more. This is the current average win rate for A/B testing in e-commerce, which means 1 out of every 8 tests, which means statistically speaking, you might get a winner if you run 4 rounds of 2 tests every, for the rest of the year, right? When we research tests, we tend to get a bit of a higher success. It's over 2/3 success. And it takes a little bit more time to plan and prioritize, but I hope that, within this talk, you have a better sense of why research is important and how it feeds into the optimization process. Because I come from a design background, so I know research very, very well, but I wouldn't be continually doing this for my clients if I didn't think it actually helped them, right? So it does, and it helps them out a great deal. So with that in mind, keep in mind that research informs test ideas for draft for everybody. If you want your business to get a solid ROI from optimization, you need to start with research first. It is the only way that I found to get tests that reliably win. And that makes it better business for you. It makes it less anxiety provoking for Black Friday. And hopefully that's helpful for you. If you want teardowns, we could go to draft.nu/teardown. We're doing page teardowns all through the rest of the year. And if you want to apply for us for slots in 2021, you can go to that link there, draft.nu/revise. And we would be very happy to begin a conversation. Thank you so much. I write letters about optimization in business every Monday. You can get them at that link. Thank you. Are there any questions? I don't know if I can see in here.
I just clouded the chat with a bunch of my own thoughts and opinions on top of what you're talking about. And other than that, we had a couple of contenders for the printer's name. Okay. I put forward Printy McPrintface, which I think is solid.
Like the boat. So Zero is the name of that's a good one, but that's also the name of my bookkeeping software. So like, I don't know, that would be weird. Printy McPrintface is good. I'll talk to my partner about that one. She probably prints more than I do.
I see. So it's going to be a mutual decision. Well, maybe I'll get you a book that you can kind of scroll through, flip through, choose a page at random, scroll down, choose the printer's name in that way.
Just like poke at it and just like find the word. Yeah, princess. I love that. What are the pronouns for the printer? I don't know.
Princess. Okay, that's pretty good. That's
I
actually
appreciate that.
really, that's going to be tough to beat. Awesome. Nick D, always a pleasure. And we got so many links from this and a couple of books to read. And I think the number one takeaway that I kind of ranted on in chat here is like, because you and I, we have the same thing. You meet with e-commerce merchant and they go, I want my conversion rate to be higher. And they just like think that if they pay you, like if they just pound you in the head with a little bit of money, a small amount of money, that you'll just magically solve all of their life problems. And as you pointed out, 12.5% of tests are going to succeed, or perhaps more if you have a true expert at the helm. And the scariest part is that given the low success rate and how often people change their site without any testing, you can be almost certain that at some point in pretty much every merchant's history, they've made a change to their site that they wanted to do because they liked it, but it actually hurt them real revenue and they just never tracked that happened. And
Oh,
so,
everyone on this call has done this.
Yeah.
I guarantee you.
It's about to happen to me. I'm going through a website redesign process for my own business, and we're not doing great conversion rate optimization. We're not perfecting how this is going to affect change. And so I know that after launch, that's going to be like my next step, is ensuring that we kind of start figuring out how people want to convert through the process. And so, yeah, it's really scary. And the hippo effect that certainly happens to a lot of people. You might be like a head of marketing in your company, or even if you're the CEO, you're going to meet with the team. They're all going to have opinions, and somebody's going to say, no, my opinion is the right way to do things. And of course, the only thing that wins is the data.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, your opinion doesn't matter. Your customers' opinions are what matters, right?
Yeah.
Like, and as long as you're able to ditch your ego and like get out of your head a little bit and think about, because this isn't a Steve Jobs scenario where you don't run market research and like come out with the iPhone from whole cloth like some feral genius. Like, no, you are not that person, right? And everybody wants to think that they're that cool, and it's just no, you're selling the same stuff that everybody else is selling, and you have to find the right people. That's it.
Yeah. And I'll even add to that if you're the person in charge, or you're thinking you want to improve conversion rate on a site, and of course, Nick laid out all the kind of strategies on this, what you really want to do is be the bumpers to the strategy, not the direction. You just need to say, okay, it stays within the brand here, it stays within the brand here. So that way it's fitting within, what the vision of the company is. You don't want to break that vision. So long as it's doing that, then the best test should kind of come forward naturally. The biggest problem a customer has comes forward naturally through the survey process or customer development process, or through heat mapping, or whatever it is that you're looking to uncover. And you remove yourself and just say, okay, this brings forward our best test. Let's stay within these bumpers and then execute.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then profit.
Yes. And then profit. Question. A miracle happens is absolutely the answer. And so with that being said, I wish everybody the best of luck in improving their conversion rate. If you want to work with the best in e-commerce, you can contact Nick D. He is so busy, he's booked to the end of the year, but you can start talking about 2021. And I just like the last time I think we talked, we're going to move straight from this session into blatant advice on how to improve conversion rate with no real testing, which is totally fine, because a lot of these things are best practices that we want to use. And Nick has laid out the process on how you can implement and test and prove that it works. And that's really the two-step process. Here are a bunch of ideas for tests, and Nick has just said, here's how you can test it.
Yeah, you're just giving the checklists, right? It's chill. We're fine.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. All right. And
thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick, and we will see you in the future.